Hello, and welcome back to the Let Me Add to That podcast. My name is Elizabeth Graswich, Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. We are the largest regional education agency in the United States. We serve 80 school districts and nearly 2 million children. We are excited to use this platform to take a deep dive into the conversations surrounding our students and schools in LA County. Do you ever wonder how LACOE ensures our schools and districts stay ahead of all things technology? Well, today we have our LA County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Debra Duardo, and our Chief Technology Officer, Gonzalez, explaining the critical role LACOE's technology services plays in education. They will share strategies, tips about cybersecurity, the rapidly changing world of tech, and more. Dr. Duardo and JR, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, let's get started with you, JR. And I don't think everyone understands the role that we play in terms of education in school districts, in terms of technology. Can you share a little bit with our audience?
Absolutely. You'd be surprised, but it's very much structured like a school district, right? We have a network team, we have a server team, application development team, an ed tech team. One of the big differences is that we're here to support all 80 districts as well as LACOE. So part of the responsibility is that let's say our network director, for example, is always available to districts for any support. So we do support the network directors at school districts, and also realizing that we have school districts with 100 students, some of them don't have a network lead. And so we step in and help them in any way we can. And that's become especially useful with recent cyber attacks and situations where a district may not have the resources to react to an emergency or urgent technology response or incident.
That's awesome. One of the things that technology did a lot and played a big role in was during the pandemic. And Dr. Duardo, I know, you remember that well, how we, really dug into technology and really learned a lot from it. Can you share a little bit about that experience?
Absolutely. Well, I'm really proud of our team's response to the pandemic and the action that they took immediately to make sure that we could go from an in-person environment to remote. And that was a big challenge. It was unexpected. Many of our school districts didn't have adequate devices to be able to ensure that every single one of their students had not only access to a device, but also had internet, and strong enough internet in order to be able to connect and to participate in school. And not just in school, but their whole household was relying on having access to the internet to order groceries, to visit their doctors, to do the things that we weren't able to do in person during the pandemic. So one was making sure everybody had devices, everybody had connectivity, but it was also not just supporting our 80 districts, but supporting our own teachers and our own classrooms in moving to a teaching remote environment. Our tech team did an amazing job assessing the need, reaching out to every district in the county and determining how many devices they needed and how big of a problem that they had. By them doing this, we were able to advocate. We needed about $12.8 million that we were able to get from our board of supervisors, who immediately stepped up and said, we want to support our children and make sure that instruction continues despite a pandemic. We surveyed all of those 79 districts. We got the devices. We helped them ensure connectivity. And then we've been continuing to advocate for broadband. And it's not, we've said over and over again, the internet is no longer a luxury. Everything we do in our world, one way or another, is related to technology, and that's only going to increase. So Jose, his entire team were able to not only survey the districts, we were able to advocate for the funding that was needed. We were able to distribute all of the devices, which isn't easy when you're talking about, 80 districts and our own schools and programs, and make sure that instruction took place during a very challenging time.
Well, and as you mentioned, the broadband, and that really was the birth of the Delete the Divide initiative, which we partner with LA County.
Absolutely. And just want to add to that, Dr. Duardo is absolutely right. And just bringing us all together to strategize and brainstorm. And I think that's really one of the biggest strengths of LA County Office of Education is getting the superintendents together, getting the directors of tech, chiefs of HR, everybody working together to solve these major challenges like a global pandemic, but many other challenges that we face in supporting our students' achievement, one of which is the digital divide. And we've been, strongly supporting a lot of the funding that needs to come to the districts. As we know, the ACP program is coming to an end, the Affordable Connectivity Program. And so we're pushing hard that we can hopefully get that funded in the long run. And if we don't, we're starting to look at different strategies like trying to get E-rate funding for school districts to give students devices that they could take home and stay connected. And I know Dr. Duardo has said this before, and we believe this at LA County Office of Ed, is that, the internet is like a utility. It's like water. It's like running water, gas, electricity, and we need to make sure it's at every household. In the meantime, we're also working with Selwyn Hollins at ISD, at LA County proper, as we call it, and we have a massive goal. Our goal is to connect 365,000 households that we've identified in LA County that do not have the internet. And so our partnership, I will say Selwyn's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. A lot of the funding is coming from LA County. However, one of the things everybody agrees on is that school districts and school sites and teachers and principals and superintendents are high trust institutions and people, high trust people that are already in those communities. And so the difference between a teacher knocking on your door, letting you know they have free internet, and some like maybe a county employee that doesn't really know the family or the household is massive. On top of that, we've also signed MOUs to make county school sites available to help connect those communities in any way we can. And so a lot of these RFPs are going out. Our first phase was Watts in Compton area. We're now moving towards Southeast LA. We're heading towards the Antelope Valley. And so it's a very structured, and we're supporting LA County and ISD and Selwyn Hollins in any way we can.
I'm always so proud of LACOE and our work around equity. I mean, I think it just sits at the heart of everything we do. And, right now we were talking about equity related to students, but there's also equity related to school districts. And, how does LACOE support equitable access to technology for the different districts that have different levels of resources?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And it's something that we've been really focusing on. So one of the ways we're doing it is we have quarterly meetings now, especially around cybersecurity, because not every district has a cybersecurity officer that is specialized in defending, the students' information in the district's data center from a cyber attack. And so we want everybody to be prepared. We don't want to wait till something happens and then we kind of rush in and help. Although LACOE now has 3 cybersecurity experts that are available to districts, thanks to Dr. Duardo, and for funding those positions. And so over the last 2 years, we've been standing up a cybersecurity team that's not just available, in case there's an incident, that's out there training our staff, training districts, training tech teams out there. And this month, we actually have our LACOE quarterly cybersecurity meeting with all of our cybersecurity leaders at school districts. And I think the biggest thing that we try to do is get everybody to have the conversation, because LACOE doesn't necessarily have to have the answers, but the knowledge is in the room, right? The knowledge is in the county, and having all of the resources of the largest regional education agency in the country meet quarterly and talk about these things are so important.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I just came back from the California County Superintendents convening and followed by AXA. And, cybersecurity is on the top of the agenda for discussion and for a good reason. More and more schools are being attacked and, victimized by these bad actors. And what we really need to do is make sure that everybody is aware of it, that everybody has the information, that they understand our role as a county office of education and how we can support them if they are attacked. But we have to also move to ensure that they're taking actions to prevent an attack. And, Jose and his entire team have done an amazing job being very clear about these are the risks and how you can mitigate those risks by whether it's two-way, what do we call it that we're all
multi-factor
doing now?
authentication.
Multi-factor authentication. I can't even say the word.
Multi-factor authentication.
But, making sure at first people think like, oh, that's such a hassle. We have to look at our phone and we have to go to our computer. But there are measures that we have to take, and we want to make sure that our districts are aware of the things that they can do to prevent a cyber attack.
And I do want to add to that, just because Dr. Duardo, when we started implementing multi-factor authentication, one of the things that made us so successful at LACOE is that we started at the top. You were the first one to turn on multi-factor authentication, and it was a hassle, but we figured it out. And so it's a lot easier to tell, everybody, hey, the superintendent's doing it. There's no excuse to not do it. And we're available if anyone has questions. I mean, we have a lot of the things we pride ourselves at LACOE is that when we implement a project or some sort of effort or program, we make sure the blueprints are documented so we can make those available to anybody if they want to do it at their district or even their county office. And I actually also just got back from the technology subcommittee meeting. And so that's something that we should add too, is we're not just meeting with our districts here, we're doing statewide, county-wide county office meetings across the state to share best practices. And this month, we actually have our LACOE quarterly cybersecurity meeting to talk about how we can better collaborate and help the rest of the state in any way that we can, or how we can apply for more grants, how we can get more funding for cybersecurity in our districts in the state of California.
Well, and I want to stay on the topic of cybersecurity because I do think it is so important and a top of mind, and not just of interest to districts, but to parents, staff, kind of everyone impacted. So, what are the programs or supports that we provide to districts related to cybersecurity?
So we actually are currently working on something that Orange County Office of Ed has been doing for a long time, and it's basically assessing the status or the posture of the cybersecurity for the various districts. So it is a volunteer program, but we will actually go into a district and we'll give you a report either as a superintendent or as a technology director or CIO of your district, and we can give you feedback on best practices and things that you can leverage to improve. We also have a document that we're publishing around cybersecurity best practices, what to do if you are under a cybersecurity attack. For the most part, calling us immediately is we can get you to the right authorities. But really important is that on our quarterly meetings, we actually have the FBI and the Department of Justice leads for our county go out and talk to you, because you don't want to meet them when you're in the middle of a cyber attack, right? You want to have those conversations, have their business card, phone numbers, emails, and things like that. And so a lot of it is just being really proactive. I know that the California County Superintendents Association Technology Subcommittee is also working on a tabletop exercise where you are in the middle of a cyber attack and you have to figure out the superintendent's role, the communications role, the chief technology officer or technology director's role, and you practice it, right? Because you have to kind of get used to what's going to happen, and it helps you be really prepared when hopefully it never happens, but if a cyber attack happens.
So interesting. It's like taking the emergency protocols that you would for an earthquake or another type of disaster or horrific event and applying them to cybersecurity. Are there tips? I think everyone's always trying to look at how can I protect myself? Are there tips that you would share with individuals who are listening that they can do to protect themselves on cybersecurity?
Absolutely. And I've said it already, and I just want to highlight it one more time. 92% of cyber attacks can be prevented with multi-factor authentication. If you just turn that on, as much of a hassle as it may be, it's really important. Aside from that, complex passwords, not having reused passwords across multiple platforms, right?
So don't use your first and last name or your birthday, right?
That's a good idea.
Perfect.
Definitely. Yeah. And on top of that, I think we have this kind of, we think we have to make a complex password for us. A complex password could be a sentence. And you just add symbols in there. It doesn't have to be a bunch of numbers and hashtags and stuff like that. It just has to be a long, 10-character sentence, for example.
Sentence might be easier to remember too. I may have to try that a few times. We can't leave the topic of technology without talking about one of the biggest changing trends that's going on right now, which is AI, artificial intelligence. And, I think it was about a year ago, Dr. Duardo, that generative AI, I think, people started hearing about it in November, and it really started coming to our attention here at LACOE. And Dr. Duardo, you were the first person who said, hang on, this is coming. We need to do something about this and support the 80. Can you share a little bit about your thoughts on AI and where we're going?
Yeah, the amazing thing about AI is that it's changing and evolving so quickly. Every day, you get more information and learn more about what it can do. And I think initially when we knew it was coming, we thought we need to be prepared. Educators need to be prepared. We have to understand how to apply AI and use it in education. Initially, a lot of people were concerned and afraid of how it could be used in a way where maybe, students cheating or, people taking advantage of using it in a way for malice. And that's important. And we need to think about those things. But there's so many more ways that it can be used to benefit instruction, to differentiate instruction, to teach our teachers on how to use AI in the classroom to save time. Because what we're finding is that, using artificial intelligence can do some of the jobs that we do as humans more precisely, more quickly. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to need people. We're going to absolutely need people, but we need to use people in a way that they're not wasting time doing things that AI can do. Things like, I just saw another presentation on AI talking about in the health system, how it can be used and how AI can read, a health screening, find things that a radiologist couldn't find more accurately, more precisely. There's going to be huge advances in health, in how we operate, businesses, services, instruction. It's going to change the way we do things. It's going to change the careers. It's going to change how we think about what our students need to know and what they need to learn and how they can combine both, learning from a person and how they can use AI to advance their work. So I'm really excited about it. We want to be ahead of it. And so we have a whole team of people. We've invited experts from all across the state to address this. And we want to make sure our districts have the information and the training they need to be ready and to implement it properly.
I've had the privilege of being able to talk to some of these, the academics and experts, and they have shared that LACOE's ahead and really leading. And, we're really happy that we're doing that. And thanks to you, Dr. Duardo, because you really rang the bell and said, we got to do something on this.
Well, it's that messaging that we've been saying at LACOE all along, that we don't want 80 school districts individually trying to figure this out. The more that we can do together with our districts and help lead our districts, the time that will be saved, the resources that will be saved by doing that is what we want to do, is think about how we can support the entire county.
That's awesome. Jared, do you mind telling a little bit more about the detail of what we've been doing around AI in education?
Absolutely. So we actually have assembled an AI task force, and we're working not only to come up with guidelines and timelines and how to implement it, how to leverage it. And that team is comprised of multiple stakeholders from across the county, from teachers to directors of technology to technical folks to non-technical folks, and really trying to get that feedback, like we said before, from our county and from our stakeholders that are out there. And so we're hoping to come out with some policies, some things that'll help the districts not have to start from scratch, right? At least a template for how you can leverage it, a blueprint for how you can leverage it. I know some districts have already come up with some of this work, and they've already put out resolutions, for example. So we're putting out some of these samples and working with the districts that are ahead of it, and they're part of our AI task force. On top of that, we're also part of national AI task force like COSIN's AI task force, the Consortium for School Networking. And we're also working with ISTE as well on AI. We were also at SITE, California IT and Education, because as we go out across the country, we're trying to bring that knowledge back to the county, because not everybody can get out to these different meetings and events and, formalizing these types of policies. And the other part we're doing is we're working with major companies like Google, right? We're actually in the middle of working with them on AI concepts and ideas. Dr. Duardo, you alluded to how it can really help education. I know there's some counselors out there or some previous counselors out there that would love if AI could help them with master scheduling. I mean, that's the use case that when I tell people that, their eyes light up. And now imagine taking it a step further, where it can see a student's English grades start to go down, and it starts giving the counselor an alert or the teacher an alert, and it says, hey, you should try to maybe give them some more reading, or maybe they would benefit from an after-school tutoring program for a few hours. Or a student starts missing Mondays or Tuesdays, and you start to see that pattern, and there's an alert, right? Counselors usually have maybe 500 students, right? It's hard to do that. What if AI could identify the students that need help and put them at the top of the list for you, so you can start supporting them, and we don't let anybody slip through the gaps, right? We talk about IEPs. What about an IEP for every single student, right? Now that we have AI, that can actually create that IEP, individualized education plan, for every kid, right? And make sure every kid has a successful, academic achievement, and that they're succeeding in whatever their goals are.
It's just incredible. I mean, it's going to keep evolving and changing. And I know at LACOE, we're committed to continuing to communicate with the 80 districts and share resources, whether it's just here in LA County or, certainly, across the state or nation. But, that's just one area in which we're being innovative and doing a lot of work with technology. Another one of your visions, Dr. Duardo, that you asked that we work on, which is a new data visualization tool that we'll be rolling out soon. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Again, everything that we're trying to do at LACOE is to think about how we can make the lives of our 80 superintendents and staff easier. They're doing the hard work every day in the classroom, in the facilities, trying to ensure everything is running smoothly. And so anything that we can do to help make their lives easier is something that we're interested in. So we know how critical it is to use data to make decisions in every area of business, of instruction, of facilities. If we're using data, we're going to make better decisions because we're going to be more thoughtful about the outcomes that we're going to get to. And so what we did is we decided to look at the type of data that schools and districts need. And some of that data is readily accessible to them. It's on state websites, the educational information that they can find on DataQuest and all of that. But there's a lot more data that helps tell the whole picture of a school community. And that includes having some of the health indicators information, that data on asthma rates, on hospitalization, on, other issues such as economic indicators. How many people are unemployed? What are the income levels of your community? What's the educational attainment in your community? Also, just resource cataloging, making sure that districts can see what else is in their communities. How many libraries? How many nonprofits? What about parks? What about food banks? Healthcare facilities. And then the education indicators that we already have more access to is putting them all in one place that's user-friendly and easily accessible. And one of the things that's really good about that is once you have this tool and this resource of data, you can disaggregate the data. You can look at it through an equitable lens and really go deeper into, well, which of our students and families are doing well, which are struggling more, what are some of the reasons for some of that. So I think it's about making sure that we have a system in place where districts can access information about their school and their community to help them make decisions on how to spend their funds, how to focus on areas that are critical to their school community, and to make it easily accessible. It'll also help them as they're applying for grants and additional funding. You know, they let me go run and check the census on this, and let me go downtown and see what I can pull around police records or mental health or crime. And so all of that information we want to have in one place that's easily accessible, very user-friendly, that districts can pull on to better serve their school communities.
Absolutely. And I mean, we were just kind of noodling around at the possibilities at a meeting yesterday about the data visualization project, which, by the way, for all the data nerds, we're going to have a place where you could start to play around with the data and look at it. It won't be the full front-facing data, but it will be available. And the good news is there's no PII or personal identifiable information. So it's very big picture, kind of macro level data that you're looking at. And so we can make that shareable. To add to Dr. Duardo, a nonprofit can go on this and see where they could better target students with high asthma rates, for example, or, hey, there happens to be bad air quality here. How does that tie into asthma rates? The other example we talked about is, hey, the traffic is really heavy at 8, but it's less heavy at 8:10. Should we change our start time for school so that it helps students get to school on time? So those are the kinds of things that, as we kind of start to zoom in, will continuously improve, because the data visualization project phase 1 is due to come out in May, but it's scalable and it's continuously improving. We've made it so that we can start to add more data sets. We're starting with 11 different data sets to start. These are 11 different places a superintendent or nonprofit or leader would have to go to, and they would have to correlate all this information themselves. We're going to put that all in one place. We're also working on some AI. Like, can I ask it, how many students in South LA need help with mathematics? Imagine if you could just ask it that, and generative AI helps give you an answer to that. So those are the concepts that we're trying to implement, because we don't want it to just be the same old dashboard that we've seen. And not to downplay that, because of course we see districts out there have dashboards, but we talked about equity. The district that only has 1,000 kids or has a smaller budget, they don't have a dashboard. And so although we're thinking about maybe some of the bigger agencies have it already, or some of the bigger districts, we want to make sure the whole county has access to this.
You know, as we've heard, you know, we're really leaders in technology, very proud of that. So for people who are listening, especially for other county offices of education or other technology, education technology leaders, what advice would you give to them on how they could enhance their programs and initiatives?
Collaborate. Come to our meetings, reach out to us. I don't think in any way that we have all the answers, but I think together we have all the answers. And if we don't have them, we can come up with the solutions to these massive problems. And I think Dr. Duardo and I have talked about this in the past. And we always say, if you could do it in LA County, you could do it anywhere in the state. You could scale it across the country. And that's the type of work that we're trying to do, right? We want, if we finish this data visualization and San Diego County or Orange County asks us for the code and they want to expand it, we want to do it. We want it to be scalable, and we want to make a positive impact on the world. I mean, we just had a meeting with USC on some of the work we're trying to do for the technology incubator. And we're talking about things that we're getting feedback from across the world, and we're hopefully creating programs that impact the whole world and the country and help kids, right?
Absolutely. And super excited to be sharing more about that partnership and others in the future. As we close, I want to ask each of you a question, and starting with you, Dr. Duardo. Looking to the future, what is your vision for the future of technology and education, and how can philanthropy and tech companies help?
Well, one, I think it's really critical that we embrace the emerging changes in technology and that we embrace it and accept it and not run away because we're afraid of how it can be used to cause damage, but the benefits and really embracing it. I think, again, talking about equitable access and making sure that it's not just for some kids in the more affluent districts, but for every single one of our students, that they have access to learn about technology, to take coding classes, to learn more about AI. And the thing that's exciting for students is it's also integrating technology into the curriculum, because we still continue to educate students in a system that we used, 100, 200 years ago. And students are really excited about technology. So we need to make sure that students have the opportunity to learn by using technology in the classroom and, making digital literacy a fundamental component of education. Collaborating with tech companies, as Jose already mentioned, developing these partnerships so that we're on the cutting edge when it comes to the tools that we need to implement in our programs. I think we also really need to focus on preparing our teachers and training them and having them feel more comfortable with the technology. And those are the types of tools that we're trying to create, and the professional developments to make sure that teachers feel like they can use this and they see the benefits of it, not just some of the damages or harm that can be done. And then in terms of philanthropy, we want to work together with philanthropy to help them understand what this means, what technology and the emergence of new technological programs means to education, and how we can be innovative and work together with them to help fund it. Because, education, the funding that we get is finite and it's never enough. And a lot of times it's restricted. So we rely on these private partnerships and philanthropy to help us reach some of these goals and visions we have around bettering programs for our students.
That's awesome. And JR?
I think a big part of this is coming to the table, right? Really starting to talk about education. A lot of times, a lot of the focus is put in the private sector. And so really bringing the companies in and helping them understand the challenges. When we talk to these Fortune 100 companies, a lot of them say, hey, no one's ever reached out to us like that, right? And I think one of the big strengths that LACOE has is that we're 1.2 million kids strong, right? We support over 1.2 million students. So we're leveraging that when we reach out to Google and we say, hey, these are the things that would help. When we reach out to Microsoft or any of the other major vendors, we're saying these are the things that would help kids. And because we're of our size, we get that conversation going and hopefully advocate for students.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us today. Just a great conversation and great insight into what we do in technology at LACOE and all the different services and opportunities we provide to our districts. Thanks to your leadership and support in serving our schools. So for more information on how our tech services team can serve you in your district, please visit us at www.lacoe.edu. Thank you.
Please follow the Los Angeles County Office of Education on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Los Angeles COE. That's Los Angeles COE. Or you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn at Los Angeles County Office of Education.